Or
We'll do a quick check, make sure. And then we will get started. All right, let's see here.
good to go?
One sec.
All right.
Making sure.
Everything's in working order, yeah.
Very echoey. All right. Give us a moment. Why does the audio sound like that though?
What's it sounding like, Anthony?
It's like very grainy. I'm trying to, hold on, I'm trying to work on that.
What?
All right, I believe we're ready.
All right, cool.
So hello everybody, welcome to VUDivluged. This is our very first live stream, so we're hoping it all goes well. I'm Anthony Plakowski,
I'm Mike Chambers.
I'm Hayden O'Brien.
and today we're going to be talking about what exactly is Homeland Security. We believe, we talk about different topics on the show a lot, and I don't think a lot of people just understand how far Homeland Security goes and just how broad
True.
that term is. So, Homeland Security, obviously, has to do with everything related to the security of our nation. And,
Absolutely.
Many people think that means the defense from foreign powers and domestic threats, or even terrorist groups. But, many people don't realize that also means keeping our critical infrastructure intact, natural disasters, keeping the American people healthy, right, and our infrastructure.
That is true. That is true.
I mean, kind of just named off like the bases. Really, like that is generally what it all does. Obviously, like there's smaller groups that do their own things here and there, but that is pretty much the mission statement for the Department of Homeland Security. That is what they do. As
Yeah, defending the homeland, yeah. I mean, and like you said, it's very, very broad. From Border Patrol to the FBI to, just there's all sorts of different things that Homeland Security entails. And so to categorize Homeland Security as its own thing is a very broad.
So I'm checking the live stream as we're going just to make sure. It's our first time.
The Homeland Security as a whole is very broad, so you have to get specific with what you're talking about within the Homeland Security.
But that's also kind of an advantage of it. So if anyone
True.
says, like the program here at Vincent's, like, or just the degree in general to go down into federal, all that, of course, there's so many small aspects. Each one kind of do its own different thing that there's kind of something for everyone if you want to get into this kind of work. You get what I'm saying? Like, so there's one,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the increasing cybersecurity. So you're into that stuff. There's obviously, there's a cybersecurity infrastructure, like an agency under the Homeland Security.
And with everything, moving to cyberspace, right? Think about,
Yeah.
A lot of controls for power plants, they're now done wirelessly.
Absolutely.
So it only takes a hacker or somebody to hack in there and
Absolutely.
make a citywide blackout, essentially.
Right. Well, and cyber, like we were just saying, is super important, especially with everything becoming, like you said as well, wireless communications. Nothing is built with landlines or things like that much anymore. So protecting the cyber, not just cyber, but physical aspects as well is very important.
So, for many people, they don't know that while during the Homeland degree, while you're working your 4 years for your Homeland degree, you can actually do the 2-for-2 program. So you do 2 years for an associate's, and then you do another 2 years for your Homeland degree. Now, that associate's can be in law enforcement, conservation, fire science, legal studies. So I think that in and itself shows how broad Homeland Security is, because
Absolutely.
you can, right, like you get the Homeland, or let's say law enforcement, that's what I did, right? So I got law enforcement, but then you can expand it. So, you have your specialty area,
Right.
but then you get a taste of the broader spectrum. So what about you guys? Were either of you in the 2-for-2 program?
Nope, I'm just straight 4 years.
Straight 4-year program? All right. Aiden, what about you?
So for me, I came here around 2020. Of course, COVID and all that fun stuff. Not really.
Yeah, no.
But my first degree was an associate's in law enforcement. And if I had decided to leave and find a job, I still would not have been old enough to get onto a department. Had to be at least 21. So I thought, okay, well, I'm still a little young to get onto a department. So I decided to go another 2 years and get Homeland Security bachelor's. And so having 2 degrees, or even just having one 4-year, can help you out a lot when it comes to finding a career that you think is right for you.
So I went to college for law enforcement, and then right before I was going to college, I realized there was the Homeland degree. So then I switched to the Homeland degree. Then when I got here, I realized the 2-for-2 program. So then I turned all my classes to the law enforcement classes to get the associates, and then go to the bachelor's. So what do you guys plan on doing with your degree? We bring a lot of people on the show. I think the audience might like to, hear about the speakers a little bit. So what about you, Aisha?
Honestly, I've been kind of conflicted, really. As
All
of
right.
lately, like, what exactly I would like. First of all, I mean, I just want to become a cop. Because, well, first of all, I'll just throw us out there, like, most agencies, not all of them, but a good bit of them, you want to join any agencies that have to do with any of this stuff, you do need, like, kind of some prior, like, experience. It doesn't have to be related to, like, our professor, the lead guy of the program, Caprino, he was a teacher. He was a teacher before become an FBI agent. He did amazing. Like, you just need some kind of experience before you can really join
real
these
world,
agencies.
and maybe not necessarily, and it necessarily doesn't have to be law enforcement right off the bat. Homeland Security, once again, is so broad that they have teams that go to airplane crashes, right? So, and they have to send different types of teams to go investigate why the plane goes down. They're not all law enforcement. A lot of the team members, they're aviation mechanics, right? Because the average police officer looking at an airplane, he's not going to know.
He won't know.
I don't know what that part is. It looks like a piece of an airplane, but
That's about it,
that's about
right?
it. But they bring mechanics. They bring medical professionals. In the event that there are survivors and they need, medical treatment. They bring. I don't know the term, but the people that work for the morgue.
They bring
Coroners.
Yeah, there you go.
there
Thank you.
you
That's
go.
the word I was looking for. Coroners come. They bring, like I said, they bring weather enthusiasts to maybe because
Meteorologists, yeah.
sometimes there are weather. It was the weather that actually brought down the airplane.
Yep.
I mean, that kind of goes along with my earlier statement. Just this degree, this profession in general. There's so many different aspects that if you're looking to join this, you can usually find something that you could really kind of sink your teeth in. Like this would be something you'd be interested in. That's why I think this kind of line of work, this degree is like one of the better ones because there's kind of something for everyone.
Right.
What about you, Aiden? Do you have any ideas?
So, coming into VU, my original thought was maybe do, like you were kind of talking about IJA police work, whether it was a standard, on the road police officer. Then I started kind of leaning into maybe canine, because I thought that would be really cool, handling the dogs, training with them.
They are amazing tools.
Absolutely. And so I thought about doing that, and then it kind of, at some point I started leaning into more of like TSA, airports, things like that. But as of right now, I'm kind of caught like he is, where I'm not necessarily sure, exactly where I want to go. Because, like we've said, Homeland Security is so broad.
And we'll touch upon this a little bit more later, but what a lot of people don't realize is that the Homeland Security enterprise, 80% of it is owned by the private sector.
True.
Right? 80% of the critical infrastructure is owned by the private sector. So you might not be working for the federal government or state, local, or tribal, but you're still part of Homeland Security.
That is true.
And there's an argument that, well, everybody's part of Homeland Security because, if you see something suspicious, report it. For me personally, I kind of like the cyber side of things. I kind of like doing half cyber, half the field. So I want to do cyber, but I don't want to sit at the desk all day. So I've been looking more into, crimes against children on the internet, human trafficking,
That's a good one.
social
That's a really
media.
good one.
Social media is a big one.
Absolutely.
A lot of people unfortunately get trafficked because they'll target young children on social media, and then they think they're meeting with somebody who's roughly their age, but they're not, and by the time they got there, it's too late.
Yeah, we do deal with that all the time, and it's something that we have to deal with and react appropriately to. And I think that's one of the hard things, especially with social media, because a lot of people can go on there, create fake accounts.
I always said that
it's hard to trace and track. So
I've always said that the internet is a great tool. It has given us access to everything, but in exchange, it gave everything access to us. But while I'm thinking of cyber, I remember you mentioning the dog. So I'm an intern at the Knox County High-Tech Crime Unit. We dig through phones and we go through looking for drugs, guns, illegal activities, and many people, when they think of dogs, they think of canines who are trained to sniff out drugs, help with manhunts if somebody decides to go on the run. But we actually have a dog at this unit who can smell electronics. Not many people realize that dogs can smell electronic. I honestly, I didn't know, and we'll definitely have to see if we can get them on our Distinguished Speaker Series and maybe show them. But if I remember correctly, every electronic has TPPO in it, which is a chemical that helps with cooling. And these dogs are trained to smell that. And apparently, pretty much every electronic on the planet has at least a trace amount of this.
wow.
And the dog can smell it. They've put like USB drives in backpacks. The dog smells it. They've hidden phones. Dog smells it. They've even
Cool.
like wrapped it and the phone in a bag, and then kind of like what the drug cartels do. They cover it and
foil
and
all
foil
sorts
and
of stuff trying to hide. Yeah.
hot sauce and all these different. Dog still smells it.
Right.
And first time I saw it, I was like, wow. Apparently, this is an episode for another day, but that was how they detected. Do you guys know the case of Jared from Subway?
Yeah.
The spokesman from Subway, who was then later caught with CP, but it was one of those dogs that led to his conviction, because they were
Do you have, like, a
They
hidden
they had a
phone or
warrant. They had a
something?
warrant for his backpack because he always carried this backpack with him, and the dog was hitting on the backpack, and not this dog, but a dog similar to the one at the Knox County Crime Unit. The dog was hitting on the backpack, and the detectives were like, "There's nothing there." But the handler of the dog said, "No, my dog is hitting on something. There is clearly something in that backpack we have not found." And sure enough, after a little bit more searching, they found a little cut, like inside, and the like if you weren't looking for it and you didn't know it was there, you never would have found it. And sure enough, they found one of those credit card USBs, and they had enough to convict him after that. So I personally find, that cybersecurity. People don't understand how much technology is integrated in our day-to-day life. And if you want to learn more, I highly recommend you check out our first episode of More Than Just Gaming, Good or for Evil. That's one of my personal favorite episodes that we've done.
Well, guys kind of want to, we've been going back and forth over Homeland Security and all that. Guys, I just want to bring up some of the classes that are here at VU for this program, just so people kind of get a little more, kind of see what we're kind of talking about a little better. Just give a brief description over some classes.
So I think, everything we've talked about so far has kind of already been the basic Homeland class. You have your first Homeland class, which is just Homeland Security, and that is just, you're not even scratching the surface. That that class, it's an introductory, kind of shows you how big it is, and then after that, you go through, you take classes of each topic. Personally, my favorite class was Weapons of Mass Destruction. I learned about CBRN, the acronym, chemical, radiological, nuclear, biological, explosive devices, and it's just wow. And to realize that people can make this stuff
from
essentially go to Walmart and come back and in 15 minutes and have everything you need to make TATP, which is a highly volatile compound. You learn that in the Oklahoma City bombing, the bomber had used ANFO. He used fertilizer. He used fertilizer to make a massive truck bomb. So that was personally one of my favorite classes. What was your guys' favorite class?
Go ahead,
for me, as well, it was WMD. WMD was phenomenal in many ways, kind of like what you were saying as well. Getting to learn about this stuff, like fertilizer. I mean, who would have ever guessed fertilizer can make a bomb?
Did you
seriously?
Did you learn anything in particular in that class? Well, other than the fertilizer, but was there anything that really stuck out to you that made you go like, oh, that's...
So, in terms of learning things, some of the cases that we talked about, like the Oklahoma City bombing, those cases just kind of stuck out to me as...
Oh, like the Japanese subway one, the sarin attack?
That was a really good one, too.
Definitely gonna need its own episode. I wish I could. I have the name of the group in my head. I just cannot. I can never pronounce it. What about you, Aisha? What class did you like the most?
I mean, as of now, the class I'm currently in right now that I find kind of opened my eyes a little more is terrorism, and that's just
terrorism. Okay.
You just learn. It's in the name. You learn about all these different terrorist groups, all that. Like what their MO is, what they're all about. What's their philosophy, things of that kind of nature, and it kind of opened my eyes a little more because, for example, when you hear terrorism, all you hear, especially in the news, is just in the Middle East,
right?
Just groups in the Middle East, all the time.
ISIS, Al Qaeda, Hamas,
Taliban,
But in this, it goes into a lot of depth, all these other organizations all across the world. That ones you probably don't even hear much about.
And there are some in our country.
There are
some in our country. Yes.
Some are actually homegrown. You learn about homegrown terrorists and domestic terrorist groups.
Yeah.
Such as Antifa and the Oath Keepers. There's two groups on both sides of the aisle.
Right. And then there's also some that are not just Antifa and the Oath Keepers that are more brought up, but also. Groups and I'm sure you've probably heard of them, Army of God.
Yes, I have
which
heard
is
of
a
them.
very, I don't know if you, have you heard of them at all? Yeah. For those of you who don't know, the Army of God is essentially a violent terrorist group that centers itself around abortion and wanting to end it. And they have gone as far as to kill doctors who have performed abortions. And on their website, and just a heads up, for those of you who want to visit their website, it is very, very graphic. They are very against abortion and doctors who perform abortions. They even hail at least a couple people who have killed doctors as quote unquote American heroes because they stopped these people, these doctors, from committing more abortions.
Yeah, you do learn that, you know, everybody thinks that there's only extremists on one side, right? But there's extremists on both sides, and it's important to recognize that and realize when it becomes extreme because, you know, there's no really one set definition of what terrorism is.
There is not.
Because it depends on your beliefs and what you think is
Yes.
right. So it's how do you judge?
It's like the whole argument: are they terrorists or are they freedom fighters? Kind of
Yes.
Well, and terrorism, domestic extremism, these words are very interchangeable because there's no set or in clear definition as to what each of them are. So you'll hear them being interchanged a lot when it comes to talking about Homeland Security as a whole, whether it's international or homegrown. So it's kind of tricky to pin one set definition to terrorism or to extremism.
One thing I remember in terrorism that I never thought of was the lone wolf. You know, every time
Lone wolves.
I always thought that people, you know, they were either part of the group or, you know, they just went out and did their own thing. But for those of you that don't know, lone wolf means somebody who has never actually met a member of whatever organization they've pledged their allegiance to.
Right. And
So the Pulse nightclub shooter, for example.
Ooh.
He, you know, went and shot up the Pulse nightclub. I'm not going to say his name because I personally believe that gives him the publicity he's after. But after he was done, and I believe it was either in a note or in a recording he's left behind, he said, "I pledge this attack in the name of ISIS." But he never met a member of ISIS. No one ever talked to him. And sure enough, ISIS said, "Yep, that was our guy." But they never met. But due to the propaganda ISIS puts out on the dark web, and even on Google if you know where to look, such as an example being Inspire magazine in the early 2000s, Al-Qaeda,
That's a big
you
one.
know, post out articles online, and I believe one was called, you know, "Make a Bomb in Your Mother's Kitchen" or something along those lines.
Something like that.
And
yeah.
it basically taught people or gave people ideas on here's how you can commit terrorist attacks with the idea of inspiring, you know, homegrown terrorists. Once again, they never actually meet in person or talk to online in any way, shape, or form. They've had no connection with an actual member of that FTO or foreign terrorist organization, but they commit themselves to their cause and commit an act on their behalf, so to speak.
Listen, terrorism is, personally, that's probably one of my favorite classes so far that I've taken. There's others I haven't taken yet, so I can't really say 100. This is gonna be my favorite.
It kind of seems to be here at the there's like a split, you know. Even like I loved terrorism too. It was a very interesting class.
Yeah.
And but you know, WMD, it's kind of WMD, but I kind of liked WMD just a little bit more. Critical infrastructure. There's a class of, you know, critical infrastructure and crisis.
Something you don't really think about all too much. Like if someone just blew up like a generator near town, all gone. You know, all the power to that town is done, and how people go about securing that stuff. Which, like I said, it's not something you really think about because there's not been like an attack on infrastructure like that in
There
America,
hasn't, no.
which, you know,
Well-
who knows at this point.
Well, but I think there's also that kind of thought to, you know, we hear a lot, you know, of natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that. So we're focused on that stuff, but we're also focused on the international terrorism as well, instead of right here.
One thing I always liked about all the classes was the daily warm-up.
The warm-ups
Just
have always
15
been,
minutes, or like 10 to 15 minutes of just what's currently happening in the world, right? And then
those are fun.
those were fun, you know, because you were constantly knowing what's going on. You saw, for lack of a better word, the drama of the world in front of your eyes. One of our viewers is asking if we can talk about some of the professors and the people leading the program.
Oh,
So the head of the Homeland Security program is currently Professor Lou Caprino. He was a teacher for 3 years,
Yes,
I believe.
He was a teacher for about 3 years.
and then he joined the FBI and was part of them for 29 years and led I believe the second biggest joint terrorism task force in the country. And then once he retired, he came here to teach at VU.
He's one of those guys that he has just a well of information and stories that you could ask him. Like if you're curious on something, he can tell you.
he's got an answer for almost everything you could possibly think
And he's
of.
got connections everywhere.
He's
So
got all
thanks
sorts
to
of
him
stuff.
and Eta Sigma Iota, we're constantly bringing in people from different organizations. We've had the DEA come and talk to us. We've had the
Yep.
ATF come to talk to us. We had the postal inspectors come talk to us. I didn't even know that the United States Postal Service basically has police/SWAT mailmen. I did not know that. You know, different types of, you were speaking canine, different types of canine units,
Yes.
such as drugs, or the cyber dog I was talking about with, you know, the TPO, or sometimes even emotional support animals. Those can be, there are organizations, I believe one of our distinguished speakers was about it, where they bring in animals after national disasters to
as emotional support, yeah. And that's very important when it comes to natural disasters or even terrorist attacks. You know, emotions are high, everyone's freaking out, not sure what to do. So having an emotional support animal like a dog or a cat, you know, can definitely help.
Can any of you guys speak on any other kind of the professors? All my classes have basically been with Caprino.
They're a good number with Caprino.
I can't really speak on the other professors.
One
in the
of,
program,
the-
I've not heard anything like bad.
I'm currently in a hazardous materials class. It's kind of like WMD, but we really kind of go into what the procedures are, and to some extent the
protective equipment. You
the
have to
protective
wear.
equipment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So while WMD covers everything, like foreign and domestic hazardous materials, it's kind of more on the domestic side, like
Right.
you know, like chemical spills, you know, stuff like
Chemicals.
that. And Professor Martin, he was a fireman in Arizona. He came here to VU, and he's part of the, you know, I believe he is part of the fire department that's right off site, stationed right off VU. I'm trying to remember the name of the station. But he was a crime scene investigator. You know, he did work. He was a hazmat member. So he worked in those scenes. You know, he's been out in the field, and you know, he's telling us all kinds of war stories about mass decontamination and how
Yeah.
you know, they try to keep it hush hush because they don't want everybody to panic, because hey, we've got it under control, but you know, because there are some chemicals apparently that once they get in the atmosphere and you know they've dispersed, they're no longer a threat. But you know, a lot of people don't know that. So he talks about his experiences in the program, or sorry, not in the program, but his experiences, and then he brings that into the classroom. So it kind of helps. You know, you can hear about it in a classroom and you go, oh, that's pretty cool. But I think when you actually have somebody who's gone through it and has done it, but then they come here, it kind of makes their lesson, in my opinion, more real, if that makes sense, because it's not just out of a textbook. No, this is what a professional has actually done, and they're telling us.
That's why I like Caprino so much, because
Yeah.
he has that experience. Like he's done this stuff that he's talking about, or he's done something very similar to. Like he's done it. He's experienced. All right. Like you just said, not reading out the textbook.
We have another professor, Professor Whiston. He currently works for the private sector. He was a sailor in the U.S. Navy and worked on submarines. Obviously, we can't really talk more about that because submarines are, we're not really supposed to know what they do.
Yeah, that's kind of a gray line there.
But
Not much to
he's
talk
currently he teaches here at VU, but he's also currently part of the private sector. So,
He's a well of information when it comes to.
he actually teaches the private sector class.
He's a well of information when it comes to that stuff too. Like if you're curious about the private sector, what they all do, and also
As we stated earlier, 80% of Homeland Security infrastructure is owned by the private sector.
Right. Well, and right now I'm taking a critical infrastructure class with Whitson, and it gets into a lot of details about the different subsectors, energy, chemical, freight and rail, dams, water, wastewater, threats and hazards to those, how that can be resolved. There's a lot that goes into protecting our critical infrastructure.
One of our
So-
viewers just asked, are there any classes that may not seem directly related to Homeland Security, such as communication or social understanding? That's a great question. I have actually taken several ethics courses. I've taken Religions of the West.
I took
actually.
that with you.
I remember that.
took that as well, actually.
Because, everyone we talk about, everybody says, unfortunately a lot of terrorists are, Muslim. That's
Right.
or Islamic, and that's what I meant. They're Islamic, and that's and people kind of have a bad rep of them. But when you take major religions of the West and these other ethics classes, it really shows that is such a small group.
It is.
Right. Every group has their extremists. Catholic, Christian, Jews. They all have their own extremist groups. The main with religions of the West, we mainly talk about Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Those are the three big ones. We do kind of touch upon every now and then different variants or other religions,
right.
but those are the big three. One ethics class I had was ethics related to Homeland Security professionals, and that was a lot of it. The Professor Cockerham, he would give us a scenario, a real scenario, like police footage.
Yep.
And say, what do you guys think? And it's interesting because we're all in
Yeah.
the same
Well-
field, but we
well-
all have different views on how that
and-
situation should have been dealt
And
with.
one thing I loved about that class was that he was interactive. He would show us, like you said, the police footage, and then he would ask for our opinion instead of just, like some of the other professors, or some other people would be like, "Oh, here's this footage. This is what I think," and then just move on. He actually wanted to hear our thoughts, our opinions, which is what I think a lot of
And a lot of the
professors
classes
should
ended
do.
up with students debating respectively amongst themselves, thinking well, here's
Yeah.
what I think in this situation, because a lot of us since we're in the 4-year degree, some of us have a more conservation mindset, some of us have a more law enforcement, some of us are fire science, so sometimes our ideas clash, and we have to debate them and talk them out, because since it's so Homeland Security is so broad, everybody has different views on how they think it needs to be done and handled. And quite honestly, I think an argument can be made. There are very few classes that I would say are not in any way, shape, or form related to Homeland Security. I'm personally taking a scuba course right now for one of my electives, and a little bit for fun. But there are swift water rescue teams. There are. I don't remember what the team that teaches my course is called. It's an acronym, but they are investigators. So if there's a car crash and the car falls off the water or off the bridge and into the water, or a criminal throws a gun into the water hoping no one will find it, they dive in and get it.
Evidence recovery.
Evidence recovery. Thank you. That's what they were called. They were the underwater evidence recovery team. And so, I think that's related to Homeland Security. With how broad it is, it's really hard to say. But definitely ethics. Ethics is a huge thing.
Oh yes. Morals and values.
Because when you're dealing with people, especially here in America, where we are essentially a diversity pool.
Right. Well, but you for a not just homeland security, but even conservation, fire, or law enforcement in general. When you're coming to a scene, you've got to be willing to either stand up for your morals and beliefs, like some of these ethics courses go through, or just take a step back and say, okay, these are what I believe, but I need to do this. So,
one of our viewers is asking, what is the average workload for a student in Homeland
average
Security?
workload.
That, well, part of it depends
That's a
on your
fun
work
one.
ethic, and the classes. So
That's a fun
obviously,
one.
Homeland Security, terrorism, WMD, crisis and disaster recovery. Those are like the big four, I would say. Oh, and capstone, obviously. But
Capstone, yeah.
but those are the big four, and personally, I don't think it's that hard because with how interactive the classes are, you know half the answers to the homework before you even read it. If you truly paid attention in class, and the classes are interesting,
They are.
And plus, I'll admit I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I like to work ahead in my work. But I personally don't think it's that big. Most of our professors, they either give homework in 2-week intervals, right? So every 2 weeks you get your assignment for the next 2 weeks, and you can get them done whenever in those 2 weeks, just as long as let's say the last day is March 25th. As long as all those assignments are turned in by March 25th, you're good. So that helps because as a college student, it really helps to have a flexible schedule. And some professors they post all the classwork right off the bat for the entire semester. And then when I'm free or I have a moment, I'll actually work a few assignments ahead because if I have free time or maybe I'm sitting at TDC, which is the dining hall here at VU, and I go, hey, I could get that discussion board done real quick, and I'll type it up.
And just to kind of, you said TDC. What TDC is Tecumseh Dining Center is what TDC is.
Yeah, Tecumseh Dining Center, the dining hall.
It really depends on the person.
It does.
Like you just said, most assignments you will know when these are due. Like you can look ahead, like say, when's this due? Like there's no like curveballs coming out of nowhere being told like this is due this. Now you know when it's due. You can clearly see when it's due. The workload for most classes are pretty. Every day at the end of the class you probably have a assignment you have to do, but there's usually that's it. Like I can't really explain it. It's up to the person how much you think is too much and how much you think is too little.
But like I said, I think the easiest part is with how interactive and in detail the classes are. And for once, a lot of people, there's the joke of what the teacher talks about then versus the homework. No, it's here the homework is what we were talking about in class. So if you paid it, and I was actually with a class with Caprino. I believe it was terrorism where we actually flipped some blocks around of the 2-week intervals because I believe it was we were going to talk about domestic terrorism and then foreign terrorism, but when I was taking the class, that is when we were pulling out of Afghanistan, so then we
flipped it, yeah.
So we flipped the order of the class to fit, and that's another thing I like, is with how flexible it is, we can actually fit the class to whatever's actually currently happening in the world. And there's been many times we've done that, where, we were supposed to talk about this topic next week, but there's currently an event taking place related to this topic, so we're going to talk about it now. That way, not only do you guys know what's going on, but you're also aware of what it is and just how it could affect the security of the nation. So, another question is there a time for students who need to work is there a time for a student who needs to work to have a job or work an internship? So one of the requirements for the VU Homeland degree is you have to complete a 200-hour internship. And that can be, once again, pretty broad. I did mine with the cadet program here at VU. I could do it with my Knox County high-tech crime unit. I could do it there, but I've already completed it. What did you guys do for yours?
I have yet to do my internship.
You have yet to do your.
This is my sophomore year, so
Okay,
you
what are
know,
you
So
thinking
you
about?
got plenty of time.
You got
Lucky
plenty.
duck.
I'm kind of those guys. I'm like a last minute kind of
What
guy,
do you
to
think
be
about
honest.
doing?
Hey, I'm kind of a last minute guy too, so don't feel bad.
Do you have any ideas of what you want to do?
Not really, man. I'll be honest. Just, like I said,
Well,
depends what comes up, really. Like what I find more interesting. But
well, this may give you an idea. Speaking of, talking about internships, at the start of this semester, I started an internship with the Knox County Regional Corrections Facility, right across from the courthouse here in Vincennes, and that was where I completed, got my hours in, worked, 7 to 8 hour shifts, and I learned a lot. I essentially started off in a room kind of like this. Had a big TV monitor up on the wall, monitoring cameras, helping out wherever I was needed. And one of the best things about being there was getting to see the correctional side of law enforcement. Usually what you see is jails, prisons, things like that, but you don't get to, you don't see people trying to correct themselves and work to be better.
And I think one thing that's nice about having the internship, well, one is it encourages students to get out there.
It does.
And experience the Homeland Security enterprise for themselves. But I also like how the classes, it's mainly about the internship. If I remember correctly, it's been over a year since I've taken it. I had a student journal I had to do every 2 weeks, and then I had a 1,500 word paper I had to do at the end. But a lot of the class, it was actually who you worked for. They actually wrote down, would you hire this? If this person decided to turn this into their full-time job, would you hire them? And it was actually the people you worked for that would grade you. It's not the professor that, he knows you're doing the internship and you get the journal, but it's the person who was actually there that says, this person did a good job. Now, terms and time, well, obviously it a little bit depends on how good your work ethic is. Like I said, I personally didn't find the homework here hard because we cover everything in class before we do the homework. So if you paid attention in class, an example, Caprino's midterm and finals. We've all suffered through that. So for the midterm,
Why don't you describe the midterms and finals a little bit for those who have not?
Yeah. So Professor Caprino does something interesting for his midterm and finals. For his midterm, we need 50 topics. The students actually make the midterm, but we need 50 topics of what we've talked about.
Up until that point.
And we spin a wheel, and whatever topic it lands on, you have to talk about for at least 1 minute on whatever it is.
And what I should say is, by spinning a wheel, it's a online wheel that's supposed to be random. Doesn't quite work out that way though.
And if you're lucky, you'll get one of the pick your own topics, and then the final, it's that 50 plus another 50, so 100 topics. But like I said, if you're just listening in the class, you've already know 80% of them. In terms of time, also, very few classes here at VU are on Friday. In my 3 years here, I've never had a class that I actually had to go in a class on Friday.
I think the only classes are was kind of like lab classes, but like.
And so there's a lot of there's a lot of time for Friday, on Friday. That's, I know a lot of people, that's when they work. They do small shifts throughout the week, but then Friday is like their main day. I know some people who actually work here on campus. We were talking about we mentioned the dining center. Some students work there, and between classes they'll go there for work in a few hours. Right.
Well, and you also had mentioned the cadets. There are students that are cadets, which essentially cadets are. And Anthony, I'm sure you can help me out a little bit since you were there longer than me. But essentially, cadets help the actual police officers. We don't carry tasers or guns or anything like that, like the actual officers do. But
you're right there with them. You experience the 911 calls yourself, and mainly on campus. We're campus security, so we have to stay to the campus. So,
I'm
but
a sidekick.
yeah, a little bit, yeah. We're kind
Essentially.
of the Robin of the Batmans, but
Yeah.
in terms of, they also want to hear about our course load. So sorry to cut that topic short, but we got only a few minutes left, and they're asking about the course load. So you can expect about 4 to 5 classes a semester. I know some people want to get it done earlier and take 6, but on average you're looking at 4 to 5.
4 to 5, yeah.
And let's see.
And then depending on the credit hours, you can have 15 to 16 credit hours.
Mhm.
I've had some of those.
I believe the minimum to be a resident at the campus, I think you have to have a minimum of 9 or 12. 9 to 12
somewhere in
minimum,
that.
but
Somewhere
that's
in
if
that
you're going to
zone.
live in the dorms. But obviously, here at VU, we have a lot of commuters. I don't know the exact numbers, but I'd say about 2/3 of the students commute
I can do.
because Monday through Thursday, the parking lots are packed.
They are.
And then Friday, Saturday, well, end of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and most of Sunday,
They're pretty empty.
they're empty.
Yeah. Well, Nigel, you said you commute. Anthony, do you commute?
I guess technically, but I literally live like a block away. So technically, I am a commuter since I don't live on campus. But I do live in walking distance. I actually do walk.
So to cut this a little short, but I think I might as well bring this up for people who don't know, or people who are about to join the program, or looking at classes soon,
Go for it.
or whatever. But we will be getting a new class come next semester in August. You guys hear the human trafficking?
No, I have not. I've heard.
I heard that.
I've
Yeah,
heard about
'cause
the
you
new
and I had
drone
that-
course
you and I
that
That's
had
all
recently
morning you
just
mentioned.
started.
Yeah, but we'll be starting next semester. We'll be getting a new class over human trafficking because that's been blowing up.
Oh man,
Sadly,
I kind of wish I wasn't graduating this semester now because, like I said, I want to get into human trafficking.
So just another thread from the yarn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that's bad. Like I just bring it up. Just everyone was curious, or
That's an
get more
interesting
people
topic.
sign up for that class when it comes. They're like, cause it'd be honestly, I'm curious. I'm definitely taking it. All right.
All right, we're running a little short on time, so any final thoughts? Anything you might want to mention to our viewers?
Well, and like we've said, Homeland Security is such a broad spectrum of topics. And it can be hard to figure out exactly, what you want to go into. Some people want to go federal, phenomenal. I've been one of those people where I'm like, no, I don't really want to go federal. It's just because I personally just don't see myself doing that.
Yeah, but there's federal, state,
You got
local,
federal, state,
tribal,
local, tribal.
little community areas.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of different places. Border.
One
There's just all
I
sorts of
didn't mention
stuff.
when we were talking about our distinguished speakers was casino security. That was an interesting how they use technology to prevent people from scamming in the casino. So that's one.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that even the 2+2 or a straight 4. They just open up so many doors. And it can be hard to figure out exactly what you want to go into, but once you pick a few topics, narrow them down, then that gives you a better idea.
Experience
as to
a few distinguished speakers. Right.
if one decides to go to them, right? Because I don't think we mentioned this before, but distinguished speakers are not required. You can go if you would like, but you don't have to.
Yes, there are some in classes, but a lot of the time, real quick, 11 to 12 is what a lot of people refer to as golden hour, as very, very few classes happen from 11 to 12. So, like you said, a lot of times they come. But, think about it. If you want to go DEA, when we bring a DEA agent, there's a
right.
connection. That's right there. What about you, Aja? Any last thoughts?
I mean, not really. I think we kind of went over most of it. Just like at the end of the day, if you want to take this or are just curious, I think it'd be a good idea. Like, I mean, I cannot compare. I've not really been in many colleges. Like, I've seen different programs, different colleges, but this one, I think I enjoy this one mainly, especially because it's it's kind of a smaller environment. So like if you got questions
Yeah.
or something, especially for our professors, because a lot of them are they do the job that they're talking about or things are.
But they actually
can-
know their students.
They-
you
they
can
know
talk.
the
You can
students.
talk to them and ask them questions over pretty much anything over it,
Yeah.
and it's really like better like one-on-one.
Yeah,
So
It's
that's-
it's not like those universities where they have 1,000 kids per lecture. No,
Right.
since we're a smaller school, every professor
Yeah,
knows a little bit about each student.
Right.
which I think
Well-
is the advantage for this program. 'Cause
Right. Well, and also, talking about smaller classes, I think some of the biggest classes are really 20 to 25 students. I mean, so it's like a normal, classroom setting.
And well, plus,
some
since you have the professors more than once.
right. Well, and also, you get to actually know the professors, and they get to know you. So if you have a question about something, you're not like, how do I ask, when he doesn't know me and I don't know him.
Breaks
So-
that
so-
ice a little bit.
So it definitely breaks the ice. But also you can have varying amounts of students, 20 to 25. For our capstone class, there's only about 8 of us. And in the past, there's been 16, 17.
And I
So-
remember, in my terrorism class, we had they do get a little big sometimes. I think it was terrorism, we had like 30 kids in that class. All right, but thank you. Thank you guys for your time. And
Yeah, absolutely. Before we close, is there any other viewers with questions or anything like that you think we should answer?
no, I believe we've covered everything they've asked so far.
Awesome.
I'll quickly say my closing piece, and if any questions come up, we will talk about it.
Awesome.
We are definitely going to bring in more students to talk to. I believe we have a legal studies
I
student.
was
by the
about to
name-
say I think we could bring Lisa because you guys.
Allie, she's looking at talking about
None
the
of us
legal
are
studies
legal
program.
studies, so-
I didn't even know legal studies was part of the 2 for 2 until I talked to her for the first time. So I'm looking forward to hearing what she has to say and
Absolutely.
have her talk about the program for a little bit and how the legal studies side, what she thinks contributes to Homeland Security. I have no doubt that it does, but just, to hear it from a student themselves, I think, and like why they're going into the field is a really big thing. But we are
Absolutely.
reaching the end of our time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for
Thank you.
watching. And we will definitely have to do more live streams in the future.
Absolutely.
So please stay tuned for that, and we will see you all later.
So you guys.